we have a lens and we look out to the world from our lens. And that lens will often reflect back what's going on inside of us, which the good news is, it's not about blame and judgment, but it's about I can do something about that. That means I can shift something internally and you will see the change externally.
Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia. I'm a dating coach, and I'm sharing no-nonsense advice for navigating modern dating with confidence and ease, whether you've been on dozens of dates or you're just getting started. I believe dating can be fun, and it can show us a path to a deeper understanding of ourselves, and that's what today's episode is all about. Real quick, before I get into the interview, I just want to let you know that you can watch all of these interviews as well as my solo episodes on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, hello, hi. These episodes are still ad-free for now if you want that experience. So just make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are watching. That helps me a lot. You seriously help me out so much when you follow or subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. So thank you for doing that. And yeah, I've always wanted to be a creator who posted to YouTube regularly, and I've been online for a long time, but this is the first time ever that I'm consistently showing up on YouTube, and I'm loving it. So I'll see you there. You can find my channel in the show notes, in my bio link on Instagram, or just by searching Dating Intentionally YouTube. So in this episode, you're going to hear from Jackie Glaser, who is a dating coach and former Today Show psychologist. She's based in LA, and she's one of my favorite follows on Instagram. We did an IG live back in January that I loved so much because Jackie's approach to dating and searching for a match is so much more spiritual than mine, but we're also so aligned in our advice. In this conversation, we talk about how Jackie met her husband, how to work on embodying more of your worth as a human, what anxiety really means when it shows up, and how we can stand in our own way without even realizing it. This was a very deep, enlightening conversation, and I know you're going to have a few aha moments while listening. So let's get to it. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here for our round 2 because we did a great live together earlier this year, and I've just been really excited to get into it more with you. How are you?
I'm excited to be here because I love your content. I think it's amazing and it's so spot on. So
I
yeah,
love yours too. I love your reels. I wish I had the confidence to be like as goofy as you are. Like you just really go for it. Your reels are
I
great.
just don't care. I know
Yeah.
exactly.
So, okay, I have a hinge prompt for you. And the prompt is when I need advice, I go to. So
Oh,
who do you go to when you need advice?
my husband or my mentor. Yeah.
Oh, you have a mentor. That's awesome.
Yes, I think it's so crucial to have a mentor.
Is it a professional mentor or like
I have had professional mentors and I have like personal mentors and like spiritual mentors. So depending on the type of the issue I'm
yeah.
dealing with or the problem, if for sure, I don't know how you can get through life without that feedback,
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's so great. Yeah. Your partner also usually, hopefully, a great source for feedback. Like, I
Yeah.
would definitely, I don't know if I would want to date someone who I wouldn't trust to give me advice. Not on everything, but on some,
I
like,
think
most things.
that's really an important point, Talia. Like you can't, I believe, is just my opinion. Feel free to dismiss it. But I think that marriages or long-term relationships are successful when you respect your partner. And when you respect your partner, of course, you're going to want to get their input. And so my husband grounds me, like he grounds me. He tells me to reality check. I'm really fast and intense. He says, think about it, don't respond, like
Mhm.
about whatever the
Yep.
issue is. He's really good with business. So, it's just, I think don't get into a long-term relationship or marriage with someone you don't respect and you wouldn't want their feedback. I think that's really, really important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. A great answer. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. What made you want to be a dating coach? And is that the right, you would call yourself a dating coach?
I don't know what to call myself. Maybe
I
you
feel
and some
you.
of your listeners can help me, but I do, it's more like dating surgery, but no one wants surgery, so I don't want to call myself a dating surgeon. But it's really about going to the going to the root of what, like, how we stand in our own way from blocking love and stopping love to come in, which is not dating advice. Because I really believe a lot of people know the right dating advice. They can read it, they can Google it. There's so much amazing wisdom out there. They don't need me or you to even though
I so agree. I so agree with you. Yeah.
you give phenomenal advice, though. I still learn a lot from watching like
Thank
your
you.
advice. I think you are really intuitive and perceptive and spot on. But I think that what stands in a lot of people's way is their own fears, their own worries, their own insecurities, their own blah 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 blah. And they don't necessarily know it. So it's becoming conscious of that and being able then to shift and heal those things that open us up to receive love, which we're going to get into, I know. But so
Yes.
I never really wanted to be a dating coach. Definitely didn't. I was a psychologist by trade before, and then went to Israel and had my own spiritual journey, and then sort of didn't really formally practice psychology in the same way, but I was in the, teaching spirituality and integrating the spirituality with the psychology and the, because I really think it all goes together. I was single for a long, 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 long time, and it was really hard and really
How
painful.
long?
I don't even want to say. I mean, I got married. No, I got married in my 40s. I shouldn't say that. I should be proud.
No, because the thing is, it's relatable. Like some
Yeah.
people are out there listening, and they're like, I've been single for 2 years. It's a long time. It can feel long.
Yeah, so I went to on this spiritual journey, and I was on that for, I don't know, 8 years in Israel, 8 or 9 years. Still wasn't married. Also, my values were shifting and my focuses were shifting, so it was kind of good I wasn't married, because that's really important to
Mm,
obviously have aligned values. But then I was really, 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 really ready. Hello, and so I got married in my 40s, and I remember making a deal with like a higher power, sort of saying like, if I get married, like to obviously a great person, I'll help singles. Like I did a deal, like I'll help. I'll
wait,
really, I really want to give back. Not that that's the reason anything happened. I don't, but I said I made
oh,
a deal. Like I'll give back where I can. I'll help in whatever way I can. So I thought I would dabble on the side, like,
right.
and it just turned into this full on, full time thing that was really needed by a lot of people. And I didn't realize how many people need the empowerment of when you're single, not to kind of cave in on yourself and feel bad about yourself, and not to feel less and less and less secure, less and less worthy, which I think sometimes
Hmm.
the journey of being single does.
Hmm.
And people start saying, what's wrong with me? There must be something wrong with me. That's what I did.
Really?
Yes. And so when I did a class in conjunction with some online dating website, and as my little giving back, and I called it "There's Nothing Wrong with You." And hundreds of people showed up live. And I was like,
Wow.
oh, we hardly advertised like at all. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I started speaking about how it's a frame of going through your own growth when you're single, and that it can be an empowering experience, even though it's hard. And people started turning off their cameras, and they contacted me. I thought they've got ADHD. They're just like checking
Right.
emails.
They're on their phone. They're
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well. And then afterwards, about 30 plus people emailed me individually saying, I'm so sorry I turned my camera off. I was bawling,
Oh my gosh.
right? I was like,
Yeah.
oh, there's a real need here for empowerment, and saying, it's okay. You're good. You're okay. Like you're good enough. You're okay.
It's
Yeah.
such a human thing to be like, what's wrong with me in a situation where you keep trying and the outcome is not what you want. And you just, that's all you really can do is it's either you're blaming yourself or you're blaming it's like all the options are gone or the good ones are gone. It's like, but there's something in between those two things. That's where the focus is. It's hard to get there on your own. It's like it's like part of why we do what we do, because
Right.
sometimes you need that support. I'm so glad you made that deal. So I guess you talk a lot about dating authentically. So when it comes to dating authentically, what issues did you have when you were single? Like mistakes you were making in terms of dating authentically, like you weren't doing that obviously or in some form. Like what were some examples?
I think, firstly, that there was a timing. I will find out when we die, we have access to the truth, right, of the whole picture and why everything happened in life, apparently. So I will find out then why I had to wait so long for my husband. And he was married most of the time that I was dating. Definitely he's meant to be like my husband. There's no question. I don't think I missed opportunities with people earlier. So I don't know if it was just that was the organic timing that I had to wait for, and it was
Mm,
part of the test that I had to go through to develop myself and have a really good marriage, thank God. Or there definitely was, levels of growth I was doing that I wasn't even conscious of, like judging myself as a failure for not being married, judging myself as not good enough, less than,
hmm.
not worthy, because I felt like a failure that everyone else was married or happy and whatever, relatively. Although that's also an illusion. And I wasn't. So I was a failure. And then I kept judging myself as a failure. And of course, that on some level, closed me up. There was a breakthrough for me when I shifted that. In fact, it's a crazy story, which I shifted that, and it literally happened the next day. Like my husband was suggested to me after I had a profound epiphany.
Really? I was
Yes.
going to ask you, like, were you feeling that not worthy feeling when you met him, or had you worked through
No.
that? So I guess you did work through it somehow.
Yeah, and it showed me the power of our inner world and how
Mm,
we really create our world. Like we really do. I don't think I can point, it's not black and white. So I don't think you can point to, oh, that was the reason. Because it wasn't, because my husband was married for most of my dating life. Like, so I
mm,
don't believe it was that, but I do believe it was a part of it. Meaning we can stand in our own way and not realize it. And I
mm.
hadn't realized that I was sort of judging myself harshly. And then I was like kind of blaming God or blaming a higher power. Like, how could you do this to me? How could I be left alone like
Why
this?
me? Yeah.
Exactly. When I stopped doing that and I owned it and said, actually, I don't need to do this anymore to myself. I can
Mm,
say, that's it. I'm good enough no matter what. I don't need a partner to make me worthy. And but that sounds easy to say, lip service, because we all know that intellectually. But this was a really deep connection with the reality on my heart level, where I was like, I am not doing that anymore. That's it. I am not beating myself up and feeling bad, and I don't need it. I no matter what, I'm not going to do that anymore to myself. And I realized I was really judging myself. Still makes me like tear up
mm,
a little bit. Like I was really doing that to myself and blaming, a higher power or blaming whatever, victim mode, whatever you want to call it. And I decided that I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that anymore. And the moment I decided not to do that and kind of surrender, just surrender, that opens you up as a bigger vessel on some level, a bigger
right.
you. And you could, and then he walked into my life the next day. A friend called me up out of the blue. Actually, I went to their house in Philadelphia, and they sort of just looked at me and said, "Who do we know for you?" Like out of the blue. I knew this friend for years, and
Right.
he said, "Who do we know?" And he said to his wife, "Ruthie, let's call all our friends in different cities and see who they know for Jackie." And they got on this mission. And they started calling all their friends in like LA, London, all these different places. Like, who do you know in their 40s or 50s for Jackie? And back came my husband's name that next day. It was crazy.
Wow. That is crazy. I mean, I think it's hard. It's so hard to trust the timing of these things.
So hard.
When you want so badly, you want to be with someone so badly. I guess hearing your story makes me wonder, do you believe in just there's one person for everyone?
No, I follow I kind of turn to spiritual teachings like the Zohar, the Kabbalah, the Jewish lens as my kind of source of wisdom that I use.
Mhm.
Uh, and and the Zohar says you have up to seven, actually.
Up to 7, okay.
Seven,
This is a
yeah,
very specific number, but it's I mean, I'm
yeah.
always comforted to like, in thinking that there's not just one, it's like
Right. No, there's not
yeah.
just one. And you can't in advance wait for some special feeling like, oh, like the lights go on and like something's going to drop from, it just doesn't, no, that does not happen. It has to be a very conscious, grounded, with using your head and using your heart and using your gut. You have to use all your faculties. It can't be one or the other. That's why people get
Mhm.
into trouble if they just use the heart, or they get into trouble if they just use the head and then they ruminate, go round and round and round. You have to use all the faculties. It has to be a grounded decision. But if it doesn't work out, you can always know that there's like a different person for you at different stages in your life. So you never have to give up is the good
Yes,
message.
I mean, I think that's a really good thing that you mentioned, like different stages or different seasons, and it's like people are in and out of your life for a reason. I think there's like lessons to pull from every relationship. There's no failed relationships. It's just like they're in
Yes.
your life to teach you something, and then they leave your life, and then you go to the next thing, and then you
And
keep building from
sometimes,
there.
yeah, sometimes you don't really get a lesson in the heart, in the body, until you
Mhm.
experience something and go through it. Sometimes you can learn just through the head, through like, oh, it's
Yeah,
like you tell me some advice and I go, oh, okay, now I get that. I'm not going to do that. And there's
right.
other times, other lessons, which I believe are our deeper lessons that we're meant to be kind of shifting in this lifetime here, is you can't get it unless you go through it. So
So
sometimes the
true.
actual experience of it, including the pain and the heartache, how many times, everyone listening, how many times have you gone through something where you said, oh my gosh, I am never doing that again because it was so painful. I'm done. Like I crossed a boundary, or I went too far, or I
Hmm.
ignored
Hmm.
something, I had a blind spot, whatever. And you're like, okay, I've learned I'm not doing that because it's in you, right? At a different level.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yes, I fully relate. On your Instagram, which I love, and your page, you talk about a bunch of different themes, and I'm just going to share 4 of them that I know you talk about, which is 1, how to feel your worth, how to trust yourself, dating authentically, and just being truly open. Like these are your 4 kind of keys to success in dating that women need to have. And I
Mm.
want to zero in on the first one, which is how to feel your worth. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Your worth is intrinsic. It is. essentially who you are. Again, I come from a spiritual lens, so this might not speak to everyone, but the
Mhm.
idea that you have a higher self, right? Whether that higher self is a soul, whatever, I usually refer to it like the soul part of you, the higher part of you, that you're here in potential, you're much more than a body. We have a soul and a body, they're intertwined together and they separate at death, essentially, right? And that's like the spiritual frame of that. And so when you identify just with sort of this world and you're just your body, okay, we can judge ourselves, we can compare ourselves, we can feel good or feel bad. But when we identify with the soul, the higher self, which has, again, I don't know about you, I feel like I've lived many lifetimes already in one lifetime. Do you feel
I
like
d
that?
definitely feel
You
that
agree?
way. Oh my gosh, for sure. I
Right,
don't feel like this is not my first rodeo here.
right.
Yes, I feel that. Yeah.
Even within this lifetime, I know you because you're growth oriented, that you've grown so much through your journey that it's like you're not the same person you were a decade ago,
For sure.
right?
Yeah. Well, yes, we evolve,
And there's
hopefully.
that essence inside of you that still feels like you. You can still connect
Mhm.
to the 7-year-old memories or the 10-year-old memories. But you're
For
so
sure.
different. But that there's a thread that's eternal that's inside of us that, like, if you just met you now, you would relate to you now, but you feel like it's your accumulation of all those experiences and it will continue for the rest of your life. So that essence of us, which is feels eternal, comes from the soul, right? So it's your inner essence. And when you start to learn how to tune into that, you can do that through meditation. You can do that through lots of different ways. I use meditation and visualization the most, but
I use journaling.
yes, exactly. Yeah, you get
Yeah.
in touch with that inner essence. So then you start identifying with that and rather than the external things. When you identify back to the soul, when you identify with that intrinsic essence of who you are, that is your continuum through your whole lifetime and beyond, then all that physical identification drops away and someone else's look can't make you feel bad. Someone else's judgment doesn't pull you down.
Mm.
You're identified internally rather than drawing it from externally. So we want to shift our identity from external validation to an internal validation. The problem is if you don't believe in that inner essence, then it doesn't really make sense because society kind of strokes people who are wealthy or famous or beautiful or powerful or productive, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we think is success and more worthy than others, but the real reality is that it's not really true, so everyone has their own mission, what they're doing on the planet, and everyone has their own potential to achieve, and that is different from everyone else. So stay in your own lane, stop comparing yourself to other people. Just
Mhm.
that's the biggest thing that I think pulls people down is they see what someone else is doing and they feel bad, whether it's relationship or otherwise. And one of the things
Right.
we practice in the work that we do is really staying in my own lane. I'm only compared to where I came from, where I am, and where I'm headed. That's the continuum of comparison. And
Mm.
it's really important just to like stay there, stay focused on you. And every time I'm scrolling or something on social media and I feel that pull of competing or like, oh, look at them, I don't have that. I'm like, no, I set a boundary internally. I'm not going there. It's false. It's illusion. It's not reality.
Yep.
Reality is I'm who I am based on where I came from, where I'm going. I can be inspired by other people and learn from them, but my life doesn't compare to someone else because we definitely didn't come from the same places. So
Definitely. So I love that in-depth description of where your worth comes from. So
mm,
in dating, how do I know as a dater that I am feeling my worth and I'm dating from that place? Like what are the signs?
I think it's about what you're willing to tolerate. What you're willing to tolerate will give you a clue about how worthy you actually feel, whether your
Mm,
boundaries are crossed, whether you ignore your discomforts, whether you ask
okay.
what you need, whether you can communicate that, whether you can be aligned with your integrity, whether you feel like you have to compromise your values or integrity to be in that connection. That's a huge sign. If you have to compromise values or your integrity where you feel uncomfortable, firstly, it never works. It'll just eat and eat away at you until it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then something has to implode or explode. It does not work. And you end up miserable. But we sacrifice and abandon ourselves for the sake of the connection because of a lack of self worth. So that's a clue. That would be what I would say would be the biggest clues.
So let's put that into like a concrete example. So like if I'm on a date with someone and I really want them to like me, or I'm like really paying attention to how they're responding to me, if they're responding with enthusiasm, or they look bored, or it's like, what would acting for my self worth look like in that situation where I'm like feeling unsure if my date is interested?
If I'm feeling unsure if my date is interested, I guess I would just feel calm. If I had good self worth, I would feel calm, grounded, curious,
Mm-hmm.
and interested in
Mm,
what was happening for them.
Yeah, I am someone who like I did find this. Like everything you're talking about, like I know I got there eventually. I
Mm.
didn't do it with a coach. I kind of did it more on my own through journaling. I had a therapist. I did it
Wow.
with a therapist.
Yeah.
So, but like I would basically like ask myself in that situation, why am I so like stuck on their interest in me? Like
Yeah.
what's going on there? Kind of like, wait, why am I so hung up on this right now? What does that mean? And then it
Right.
like kind of brings me back. Like, oh right, like this is just the first date. Like
Right. Compassionate curiosity. When you're compassionately curious inside yourself, like just like how you beautifully role modeled that of like, oh, what's going on there? Then you have a chance of understanding that what's behind that for yourself. Like if you're
mhm.
judgmental on yourself, you won't get access to that clarity or that wisdom.
Right. Oh, that's
That's
so true because it's like that noise of judgment, like, kinda just clouds any possibility of
yes,
curiosity.
it
Yeah.
shuts you down. It's a really a type of self-rejection. If we don't have self-worth, we'll go into some form of self-rejection as well, whether I'm dismissing my feelings, ignoring them, escaping them, judging them, or blaming others, right? Or blaming myself. So they're the kind of four key things that really will block my growth or finding out why I'm doing something or being able to shift or change or transform. And if I have good self-worth, I'll be curious. I'll want to understand myself better without the judgment, which opens up a space for that change to happen. And when
Mm.
you are coming from a worthy place, you'll be curious, as we said before, to see someone else's behavior as a reflection of them and not you, and not crumble in the face of something that might look ambiguous or potentially negative, rather than like, I wonder what's going on for that person. Maybe they're like got a stomach ache. Maybe like they're
Right, or
stressed
they're
about something
nervous or
else.
yeah, all these things.
Right.
That's so true. So, I have another question that came in from Instagram for you, and I
Oh,
really am excited to hear your thoughts. So, this person writes, "How can I believe that I can be in a relationship when no one has ever wanted to date me?"
I would want to know if I was meeting that person who asked the question, and this is a bit tricky because it's not so simple.
It's never simple.
It's never simple. Our external world is a mirror to our internal world.
Mm,
And we don't see, the Talmud says we don't see things the way they are, we see things the way we are. We have a lens and we look out to the world from our lens, and that lens will often reflect back what's going on inside of us, which the good news is it's not about blame and judgment, but it's about I can do something about that. That means I can shift something internally, and you will see the change externally. And so in this situation, let's say when there's no dates, I say there's three main patterns people have. One is I don't get any dates. One is I get really bad dates, not aligned. And the other is I get good dates, but I don't go past one and done, two and done, three and done. Like I can't get deeper. The other three, I don't know about you, if that's what you find.
no, you nailed it.
That's the three main patterns. And so this one is I get no dates, right? And when that comes up, what I usually like to ask curiously is, are you truly, truly open on a deeper level? Is there part of you that's open and there's a part of you that's scared? Like really scared, maybe for valid reason. My parents didn't have a great marriage. I'm scared I'm going to make the wrong choice. Self-trust, like we talked about. I'm scared of being rejected. And if you have this deeper subconscious fear, it will do everything in its power to protect you, and it will keep you closed and protected on deeper level. You're not aware of it. You're still doing all the right
Right.
things, going out and dating, but on a deeper level, part of you's not really open to letting that in, and that really does affect your outer world. And I've seen it a lot, where I've seen women work on themselves and shift, and then out of nowhere suddenly a date suggestion comes in and they're freaking out because they're like, what the heck just happened? I said, you shifted. So you've shifted how you relate energetically and subconsciously to your world and to yourself and to others. And so people now want to come closer to you.
What has to happen for that shift to take place? Like, is it just a decision or something else?
No, because that's the problem, and that is the problem. I'm not going to go down that angle, but it's the
Yeah,
problem
I
with
know.
with talk therapy is that you can talk yourself into things like on an affirmation level, consciously, which is not bad. It's just not the whole level, because it's at the cognitive level. We have to be really, really ruthlessly but compassionately honest with ourselves of like, how do I really feel about marriage or a long-term relationship? Like, how do I really feel about letting someone in and being really intimate in a real way? Like, what do I really feel about that? And you can even, practice visualizing down the track. If you actually had a really available, healthy, amazing person show up for you, what would come up? What would be your first reaction? And some people say, oh, I'd say, oh, that'll never happen to me, or that doesn't exist, or it won't last, or I'm so scared it's just too good to be true, or all these fears start coming up. When you visualize the ideal, the fears come up so you can actually assess, what do I really feel at a subconscious level?
Hmm.
Subconscious means I'm not aware of it. And so we
Right.
have 80%, 80, of our knee jerk reactions, especially to love, come from that place, from the subconscious. So there's tons of stuff we don't know. It's like a tip of an iceberg. And we have to look underneath the surface to see what we really feel.
I hear you. I think some people are really scared to look under the hood. I've been there. Like again, I was working with my therapist for over 6 years, and I've been in therapy like on and off my whole life, pretty much like since I was in middle school. And it's messy sometimes. You don't want to deal with it. It's
Right.
scary to face it. Sometimes things just come up after years of
Yeah.
avoiding it that you don't even know you're avoiding it. Like,
And the reason people don't want to look is because they're scared, either like they're scared of what they're going to find and what it means about them, and they're scared because they don't want to judge themselves,
and
or
then
they
they have to deal with it also because once you know it's
right,
there, it's like either you're either choosing not to deal with it and you know it's there, or you have to
right.
deal with it. Yeah, I mean, I experienced this shift as well before I met my fiance. I was like, there
Mm,
was a point where, but I consciously knew that I was not ready to work on it with someone, meaning I wasn't ready to accept someone's like flaws and integrate them into the relationship and accept them and like all that. So I just didn't have relationships for a little bit. And then I felt emotionally available to do that. I was like, I'm ready to put the energy into that. I'm ready to like work on it, to figure it out because that takes energy and you have to be self-aware, you have to be humble, you have to be uncomfortable sometimes, you have to have hard conversations. So I felt that shift and I met
right.
my fiance like a month or two after making that. For me it was more of an act of choice.
I know this is your podcast, but what inspired you to shift that? Like why then? Why? What happened for that shift to
I
happen?
mean, I'm a really controlling person. So I was like, I want to be single for a year. That was I
Uh-huh.
just got out of a relationship. So I chose 1 year and then a year passed. And I was like, obviously I checked in with myself. It wasn't like forcing myself to be open or ready. I was like, okay, like I feel like I'm good. I dated a lot of people. Like I spent a year alone while dating and I feel ready. But I also know that I'm the kind of person just historically with my patterns that the second I want to be in a relationship, I will find one. Like that's just how my life has gone.
Uh-huh.
Like in high school, in college, I was just like that. I think some people are just relationship people.
Yeah,
And it's so I actually had to try harder to be single. Like that was actually a little harder for me.
that built you internally.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I feel
Yeah.
satisfied. And also like I'm fully aware that anything could happen and I might be single again in my life one day. I don't want to be. That's not the intention. That's not my hope, but it's like, I've seen it with my parents. My grandfather is widowed twice. My dad is widowed, after, in a second partner. Like,
Wow.
it's just, it happens. So yeah, there's that level of acceptance and openness that I have. It's like, and yeah, coming from a place of self worth, it's like, I know I'll be okay literally no matter what.
That is exactly
Yeah.
the key. I know I'll be okay no matter what. And when you do that, you create a space, right? Because when you don't do that, when you don't say I'll be okay no matter what, there's a certain resistance. Like I'm okay as long as that doesn't happen, whatever that is for you. And when you do that, it creates an internal resistance and a subconsciously, like what we resist persists. So this is the
Mm,
idea that fear can create the self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
right.
Rather than what we resist persists. I don't want to resist. It's like, I don't want that to happen. But if it does, I will be okay. Creates a spaciousness and you're not putting energy into it.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, people put energy into what they fear. And that creates more of an attraction to that thing. I don't want to scare anyone, but it really is true. So you want to be able to work through that and let it
It's a
go.
good reminder. So there's another question that came up that I don't know how to answer this, but I'm wondering if you do. What if I have a health condition or disability that makes it difficult for other people to choose to be a part of my life? Does my disability make me a burden to whoever chooses to share a life with me?
I mean, what's a burden? I mean, we all have issues. So this issue is going
Yes.
to be clearer. This issue is going to be upfront and obvious, and everyone else has issues that you find out through the relationship. And a disability that you've overcome and struggled with, for your person that is the right person for you, they will see that as your strength. They will see that as they'll admire you for it, as opposed to someone else may judge you for it, but then guess what? That's not your person. So I
Right.
found again countless times People come to me scared. I even can think of one client right now who had this exact situation, and she had a noticeable limp and a noticeable issue. Like it was a very important, like a very big
Mhm.
issue medically. It's not even the slightest of a big deal to her now fiance, and he loves her for it, that she really grew through it and had the adversity and the challenge she went through, and that it strengthened her. It will be the strength that the right person for you will see. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, this is back to what you were saying about comparison. It's like, I can imagine that when you have a visible disability or not visible, or just something that you feel is a bigger hurdle for someone else to get over, I guess, you may be comparing yourself to people who are not dealing with these things. And it's like,
Right.
well, of course I'm undesirable because I'm harder to love. But it's like, if that's your story, that's going to be your reality.
That's your story. And don't
Yeah.
compare yourself to others. Stay
Right.
in your own lane. Back to that.
Right.
Yep.
I love your answer. Another question, about when it comes to dating authentically, this is all from Instagram. People are wanting to hear from you. This is more about dating authentically. How can I be more like myself on a first date? I get so nervous and chatty. And I feel this, like, dating authentically is easy in theory. It's like, okay, yeah, I know myself. I can be myself. But then the second you sit down and you're having a drink, it's like something switches and you're watching yourself. You're like, who is this person? What's your advice for this
So, a
situation?
couple of things. One is before the date, tell yourself it's completely okay if this doesn't work out. So, again, why are we nervous and chatty and not okay? Because we're so scared that they're not going to like me, right? I'm going to mess it up. So you're creating resistance and energy around the very thing you don't want. Exactly what we said before. So, first thing is, if this doesn't work out, it's completely okay. No matter what, I'm okay. That's number one. So then there's less pressure on it having to work out. That would be number one for sure. Number two is what you do on the date. Don't keep sitting at tables opposite each other, as in like interview style, staring at each other, super intense. I can't take that. I'd rather sit like the corner works,
Love
or
the corner.
love the corner, love the
Yeah.
corner, or go for a walk, or go and look at things together. So you're side by side looking at things and talking and interacting. So it's less intense. And if you're nervous and chatty, it doesn't show that. You don't reveal that as much. And then, sometimes a glass of wine can help. Not that I recommend that as the only option, but it definitely can help.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, walk. Yeah, or if you don't drink, like moving your body, walking, something side by side.
And then I would also say that if you want to do the deeper work around that, which is where I think it really changes permanently, is you want to look at which part of you feels very nervous and chatty
Mm.
before the date. You don't do this on the date, obviously, but the work that would be done, and I would work with someone on, is where do you feel that in your body? Oh, I'm jittery in my diaphragm. Okay, so let's go talk to that part of your body, like bringing your attention into the diaphragm and actually talking to that part. And that is actually an expression of your subconscious. When you're in the body, reflects the subconscious. So there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. It's amazing. It talks about all of this. And I teach people a method of just how to process that for themselves. And you can shift it pretty quickly, because usually those parts of us that feel nervous are young. They're young. I
Yes.
don't want to be rejected. I'm not good enough. I'm whatever it is. I don't want to get hurt, right? All these protective things.
Yes. One thing I saw this on maybe on TikTok or Instagram was like asking yourself, how old do I feel right now?
Exactly.
I always think about that. It's like, wait, how old do I feel right
Well,
now?
right.
Yeah.
And if it's young, like usually you can ask that part of the body as well, how old are you? And it will say
Yeah.
7, 10, 12, 15, whatever. It's
Hmm.
often teens as well. You can then respond to that part of you differently. You respond to that part of you like, it's okay. I'm with you. I, as the higher self, I'm with you. It's okay no matter what. And you don't even, this is my favorite line. You don't even need to come on the date. What do you mean? You don't even need to, you're a 7, you're 10, you're 12, you're 15. You don't even need to come on the
Right.
date. What are you doing on the date? You go off and play. And you're talking to yourself, literally. And you put your hand on your stomach or wherever you're feeling at your chest. You say, you don't even need to come. You go off and play or hide behind me. I'm going to deal with it. I, as the adult self, I'm going to deal with it. These are like versions of probably,
Yes. No, I love this. I talk about this with my therapist all the time. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I believe I teach people how to do it, so you don't need to run to a therapist all the time. It's good to learn it from a therapist or coach,
Right.
but I think once you learn it, like you can do that for yourself now, right?
Yeah, no, you don't have to go to a therapist to get that information for sure. It's just that's where I learned it. But like it is really helpful to
Really
pause and take a breath or just take a beat, take a sip of your drink, just to enjoy a moment of silence and check in with your body and be like, okay, where is this nervous energy coming from? Like you said, super helpful. But it's hard to do that on a date because you're like, there's
Yeah,
so many things happening. Like your brain is everywhere. You're like evaluating them, you're thinking about yourself, you're like Do I look okay?
So that's
'Cause
important. So come back to the present. Don't let yourself
mhm,
evaluate. Tell yourself you'll evaluate when you get home. As soon as you
right.
evaluate and you're assessing, you're not actually in the moment with the person at all, and there's no real chance of connection. So assessing and analyzing pulls you into your intellect where you feel safe, but it actually creates a
Mm,
defense or a protection so that you don't even feel the connection. So you go home, you go, oh, that wasn't a good date, or I didn't feel it. Yeah, you didn't feel it because you weren't there to feel it. You weren't here,
right.
right? To even be open to the possibility. So let yourself be in the moment, bring yourself back to the moment. How do you bring yourself back to the moment quickly on a date? Five senses, right? What do I see? What do I hear? What do I feel? Taste, touch. And you could just quickly look around the room and just like kind of, it just snaps you back to your senses. And then I like to put in a grounding cord. So imagining a grounding cord from the base of your spine going all the way down through the chair, through the floor, all the way
Mm.
down. Yeah, if you can do it now, you can feel it
Yeah, I'm like, I'm doing it now. Yeah.
down into the center of the earth. Everyone can practice it. Down into the center of the earth. Imagine a big piece of equipment hooking you into the center of the earth, and then that grounding point can be made of anything, like rope, metal, wood, whatever, and it moves. It moves with you. It moves with you, so it doesn't keep you trapped, but it keeps you grounded into your body, and it pulls the energy down. Sometimes, if you really want to be grounded, you can do the four corners of the chair you're sitting on. Also, have grounding cords. You can do
Mm,
it from the bottom of your feet as well as the base of your
yeah.
spine. And then all of a sudden, you have this like downward energy, whereas chatty anxiety is an upward energy. So if you know that anxiety is up, like that's why we have shallow breath up in the upper chest, right? We get jittery, we feel unstable or ungrounded. And I can do that consciously, just literally in 5 seconds. You can do that on a date at a table. No one will know. Then you ground yourself. And that really helps be present and show up.
I love these tips for being in your body. These are great.
Right.
I want to switch gears for a second and talk a little bit about self trust. And then I got this question from Instagram. She writes, I feel like I'm running out of time at the age of 32. How do I not freak out? I'm really happy hearing your story earlier about how, you trusted, you had to work to trust your timing. You met the one in your 40s. What do you have to say to this listener?
So if we look at what freak out means, freak out is really anxiety. It's what
Yes.
if. Usually it's what if in the future. What if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? And we know that that's classic anxiety. So now we're talking about how do I actually just deal with my anxiety as opposed to this is a reality. It's not a reality, right? Everything can change tomorrow. So we have to be
Mm,
open to the fact that anything can change tomorrow. And I have a part in creating that or not. And if I keep focusing my energy on my worst case scenario, like we put so much energy and imagination into the worst case scenario, it's unbelievable. Anxiety is the result of what we don't want. So let's focus on what we do want. And that opens also you up to that more. So I would say to stay in the moment, trust the process, and know that that freak out is anxiety. And if it's anxiety, it doesn't mean it's real. Anxiety lives often in the future. What if? What if this happens? What if that happens? And then you know that's not reality. That's just anxiety. So labeling it as anxiety and coming back to the present.
yes. Yeah. And also just like you are not your anxiety. I always think about that. It's like
Yes.
I am not these thoughts, like these anxious thoughts don't define me or my experience. It's just one part. It's like one slice of my experience. You can feel anxiety, it's normal, but you don't have to act on it. You don't have to
Right.
let it drive everything because yeah, when you're acting from a place of fear, like you've been saying, you're more likely to pull those things you're scared of closer to you.
Yeah, what we resist persists. So that also goes with anxiety. Anxiety is fear. So if I resist the fear and say, uh oh, I'm feeling anxious, no, 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 that makes it bigger. If I actually say, okay, I'm feeling anxious now, it's not me, it's just going to move through me like a wave, it will literally come up and out. It will kind of move through you and then calm down. But if we resist it, it gets bigger and bigger.
Yes. Well, I want to ask you, you work with a lot of people and you've been doing this for a while. When you think about the most successful clients you've worked with, what do you think they all have in common when it comes to their approach to dating?
Great question. Humility, being willing to look within and like, okay, let's do this. Let me be open. Let me look. Understanding that being single is a journey of growth and to develop them as opposed to a punishment, that there's something wrong with them. So that mindset. And I would say just being motivated to keep growing and learning from different people, doing the deeper work.
Yeah, I love that because it's like that motivation to grow and learn is separate from the outcome of dating, which you just like obviously you're dating to marry, but but if your motivation is to grow and learn, then you can easily keep going when you're still not in a relationship. It's like that's you're kind of just you just want to learn. That's why it worked for me. Like I was just loving the process of learning.
Right. And then you end up being in a better place anyway for a much better relationship.
Yeah, amazing. This has been such a great, enlightening conversation. I love all the practical tips that you provide that I would have never thought of. Like, that's why I'm so glad to have you on. I knew you'd come in with all of these different ways we could get more in touch with ourselves, trust ourselves, be more grounded. So thank you for all this wisdom.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I
Where
love
can we find you? Where can we get more Jackie?
Jackie Glaser Official on Instagram. And yeah, you can DM me. Happy to be in touch.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Jackie, and I'd love to hear from you. What was your biggest takeaway? What resonated with you the most? You can share below in the comments if you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, or you can slide into my DMs as always to share your feedback on this podcast. Come say hello on Instagram at dating.intentionally. I love hearing from you. Thanks again for listening. I love it if you share this episode with someone who is navigating dating and might need a little confidence boost or some tough love. If any of these episodes have helped you in your journey, you can help me by leaving a stunning review on Apple or giving Dating Intentionally 5 stars on Spotify or subscribing on YouTube. I'd really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Talia. This has been Dating Intentionally, and I'll catch you next time.